Welcome back to Breakfast. The downing of MH17 and the deaths of 298 people suddenly sharpens the world's focus on Ukraine's smouldering conflict. Russia's support and arming of the rebels has been condemned by world leaders. So will Russia be held accountable, and what will the global ramifications of this disaster be? Robert Patman is a professor of international relations at the University of Otago, and he joins me now from Dunedin. Robert, how certain can we be that this was Russia arming the rebels and that Russia effectively has the blood of 298 people on its hands?
Good morning, Nadine. I think we can be reasonably certain. The Putin government has said from the outset, the moment the downing of the MH17 occurred, that it was the Ukrainian government responsible, but all the evidence suggests over a long period of time that Mr. Putin has supported the armed rebels from the outset and indeed provided training, personnel, arms, and now we think a sophisticated missile system.
And yet Vladimir Putin has said effectively that this is Ukraine's problem. It's happened in their country and they're responsible because there isn't peace in their country. That's not going to wash with the international community, is it?
No, but he would say that, wouldn't he? I mean, he's been playing a double game for some time. Since the election of Mr. Poroshenko at the end of May, Mr. Putin has been doing two things. First of all, saying he wants a peaceful settlement, urging the new Poroshenko government to negotiate with the armed rebels, which he's arming, and also at the same time keeping the pot boiling covertly by making sure that the armed rebels do represent some sort of resistance to the government. The government has been launching a strong, as it calls it, anti-terrorist campaign the last few weeks, which in turn has meant that Mr. Putin has stepped up military support for the armed rebels. The armed rebels have publicly criticised Mr. Putin at times because they get frustrated by the fact they don't think Russia's doing enough to help them. So Mr. Putin's been treading a fine line by arming the rebels and at the same time calling for negotiations between the rebels and the government.
As we've heard, condemnation from around the world, but what actually can other world powers do to get Putin to bow to that international pressure?
Quite a lot. Mr. Putin's already paid a terrible price for his muscular policy. Economically, Russia has seen something like $77 billion leak out of the country since January of this year. He can't sustain those sort of losses for too long. Russia's economy is inextricably interlinked with the global economy. But strategically, he has alienated virtually everyone in the neighbourhood. And ironically, Mr. Putin's push, his muscular policy towards Ukraine, was designed to prevent Ukraine turning to the West. Well, in fact, the democratically elected government Poroshenko is now signed an agreement with the EU, and membership of NATO can't be ruled out for the Ukraine. So Mr. Putin's policies have been economically and strategically counterproductive.
So you don't think then that might force some kind of backtrack here from Vladimir Putin?
I don't think he's going to be. I don't think he will be publicly cutting off his support for the rebels in the short term. But I think the international pressure on him will take its toll, and his regime in the not too distant future, but certainly in the question of months.
Thank you very much for your time this morning. That is Robert Patman, a professor of international relations from the University of Otago.
Our top stories on Breakfast. So-called drunken rebels accused of tampering with the MH17 crash site.